Hey guys, Sugar Bear John here, back with another video, and in today's video, we're going to be going over a very basic blood decay guide as it pertains to the Shadowlands pre-patch and the basic fundamentals of how to play blood decay. I got quite a few requests from some of my subscribers and viewers on Twitch to make this video, so here it is. This is just going to be a very general basic part 1 guide, and I will be coming out with part 2 when Shadowlands comes out and we know a little bit more about the covenants, the conduits, and the systems involved. So don't expect anything crazy from this. If you are a very advanced blood decay, you can skip this video. If you're looking to get into the class, or if you feel like you want to fine-tune some things that you missed, this might be a good video for you. Like I said, I do stream on Twitch. You can catch me there Tuesday, Thursday nights, as well as Saturday mornings if you want to pop in and say hello. Or if you want to ask any questions while I'm live, feel free to. The link to my Twitch is down in the description below. And before we get started, make sure you hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have any questions at all or just want to say hi, make sure to do so down in the comment section below, and you can do that at the end of the video. But let's get right into it. Now, very general guys, the blood decay is a very reactive type tank. Every tank needs to know when they're taking incoming damage, but the blood decay is a little bit more of a special class where our active mitigation is basically self-healing. I'm sure you've seen some blood decays do crazy HPS, out healing some of the healers that they run with. It all comes down to how well you time your death strikes and how well you know when you're going to be taking a serious amount of damage. Our main stat priority as blood decay is strength, haste, and versatility. As you can see here, strength increases the magnitude of our attacks and abilities, and it increases our parry chance. The more strength that we have, the more threat that we can build, and it increases our attack power. And then of course, it increases our parry chance, which is also nice since we don't really have any active mitigation against melee physical attacks. Haste is super important because it actually reduces our rune recharge rate, and if we have less runes waiting to come up, that means we have more runes that we can spend, and the more runes that we spend means the more runic power we get, and the more runic power we get, the more death strikes we can do. Haste is a very important stat for a blood decay, and you want to make sure all of your pieces of gear have haste, because like I said, with more haste it equates to this domino effect of equally more survivability. Because we lack mitigation against basically any melee or physical attacks, versatility ends up being our second best stat because it just reduces the amount of damage that we take. So it kind of smooths the amount of damage that is incoming to us, and it also increases our damage as well, which is also nice. But versatility comes up as our secondary stat. So as a blood decay, there's two main resources we need to manage, and that's our runes and our runic power. We build runic power by spending our runes, and we use our runes to build up our active mitigation and to gain threats. There's 3 runes that can be recharging at any given time, and they are on a 10-second cooldown recharge rate, which can be reduced with the stat haste. With our runic power, the only really spell we're going to use with that is Death Strike, and I'll get into that a little bit. Okay, so up next, I wanted to give you guys an idea of your top 5 abilities that you're going to most likely be using the most as a blood decay, and so these should be your most easily accessible keys. So for me, it's 1 through 5. For other people, it's something different. But your most 5 spammiest keys with these fingers should be as follows, at least in my opinion. Dark Command, which is your taunt. Death Strike, no brainer, that's your active mitigation. Rune Tap, which is going to be something that you're going to use here and there. It's not something you're going to spam so much, but it is kind of important to have that there. Heart Strike as your runic power builder, and then Marrow Rend as your Bone Shield builder. So now that we've gone over a little bit of our stat priority, our resources, and what we should be key binding, I'm going to tell you and explain to you why we should be key binding these abilities and what exactly they do. So really quick, Marrow Rend, as you can see here up on the screen, costs 2 runes, and it gives you 3 stacks of bone shield. You can have 10 bone shield at a time. You want to make sure that you have anywhere from 5 to 10 at any given time. Never dip below 5, and don't overcap over 10. So if you already have 7, 8, 9, or 10, you probably don't need to use a Marrow Rend and waste 2 runes. Your other ability, which is Heart Strike, is your main runic power builder, because as you can see here on the screen, only costs 1 rune, but it's a cleave ability. It hits 1 target, and then it cleaves onto the next nearest target. If you have a Death and Decay down and you're standing in it, Heart Strike actually deals additional damage to 3 more enemies. And then you get more runic power for any enemy that it hits based off of the talent choice that I'm going to go over that you're going to choose. You're always going to choose this one in just a quick minute. Rune Tap is an ability that's off the global cooldown. It's basically just a little minor defensive ability like a Bark Skin. It's a 20-second damage reduction for 4 seconds. Put it on your bar somewhere, use it going into a pack, and I'll demonstrate that here at the end of the video. Death Strike is your main mitigation, your main heal, and basically more or less your only heal. It costs 45 runic power baseline, and it does damage, and it heals you for 25% of the damage taken in the last 5 seconds. So make sure, like I was saying earlier in the video, you know when you're going to be taking the most damage, because within that 5-second window is probably when you want to use your most biggest Death Strike. And then Dark Command, this is just your taunt, 8-second cooldown, taunts an enemy. You want to have this on your bar. Now, the reason why you want to have no less than 5 Bone Shield stacks is because of our passive talent, which is something that you're going to get at level 58 when you level through Shadowlands, is Ossuary. Ossuary is a passive ability. It used to be a talent, but now it's baseline, so we won't go into that rabbit hole. But basically, if you have 5 Bone Shield charges at minimum, your Death Strike is reduced the cost by 5 runic power. So instead of 45, you're going to only have to spend 40 for your Death Strike. And if you're spending less runic power to heal yourself, that means you have more runic power to use on another Death Strike, which equals more, you guessed it, survivability. I'm going to go really quickly over our main offensive cooldowns and our main defensive cooldowns. Our main offensive cooldown is going to be Dancing Rune Weapon. It's a 2-minute cooldown, ignore the 1 minute. That's just one of my PvP talents. It basically just mirrors your your attacks, and it doubles whatever you do to the particular enemy, and it also gives you 40% parry chance. So if I pop Dancing Rune Weapon, an example, and I hit a Marrow Rend being the 3 stacks of Bone Shield that we get. If you have Dancing Rune Weapon up, it actually gives you 6, which is nice because that means you only need 1 Marrow Rend to be in that safe zone of between 5 to 10 Bone Shield charges. If I also spam or hit Blood Boil on a pack with Dancing Rune Weapon up, instead of having 1 Blood Plague on the enemy, it's going to apply 2 Blood Plague on my enemy. Our other offensive cooldown is going to be Raise Dead. It's a 2-minute cooldown. It raises a ghoul to fight by your side for 1 minute. Use it more or less on cooldown. You should always have your minion coming up. It does extra damage to the pack, and if things are dying, that means less things are hitting you. So this is our other offensive ability that you want to make sure that you're having up as much as you possibly can. So going quickly into the main defensive abilities, Blood DKs are notorious for being very good tanks against magic dungeons and magic type enemies, mainly because of these 2 abilities that you see here on the screen. Anti-Magic Shell is on a 1-minute cooldown. Use this when you feel like if you feel like you're going to take a lot of magic damage, but also use this to negate any enemy dots that would be applied to you, harmful magical debuffs. If you time this correctly, you can negate those abilities if you pop Anti-Magic Shell before the dot is applied to you. The other ability is Anti-Magic Zone. This is, again, something new in Shadowlands Blood DK. Anti-Magic Zone is just basically a zone that's placed on the ground. It's on a 2-minute cooldown, and anybody that stands within that cone is going to take 20% less damage of magic damage for the next 10 seconds. So this is a very good party-wide and raid-wide damage reduction for magic. And then we have Vampiric Blood. Vampiric Blood is actually on a 2-minute cooldown. The only reason why mine is reduced is because I'm using the Vision of Perfection Minor Essence. But baseline Vampiric Blood is a 2-minute cooldown. This is basically your I need a bunch of healing, oh shit, type of button. It's basically empowers the amount of absorbs and heals that you do to yourself and what your healer does to you by 30%, and it also increases your current and maximum health by 30%. So use this in sticky situations when you know you're going to take a lot of incoming damage and you just need a bunch of healing to flow into you. Icebound Fortitude is on a 3-minute cooldown. This is one of our biggest defensive cooldowns. It's on a 3-minute cooldown. It basically just reduces the amount of damage you take by 30% for 8 seconds, and it also grants you immunity to stuns. Pretty straightforward. Pop this when you know you're going to take a ton of damage, or if you know you're just getting whacked by a bunch of melee dudes, and you're going to take a lot of incoming damage. Lichborn, I guess I can say, is somewhat of a defensive ability, which is also new. It's on a 2-minute cooldown. Basically, it makes you undead, and it makes you immune to charm, fears, and sleep, but it gives you a 10% leech. So that's why it would be a pretty nice defensive cooldown as well to mention here. Use this if you want to benefit from the leech, or if you're going to be charmed, feared, or sleep. And then the last defensive ability, Sacrificial Pact. This synergizes well with the Raised Dead. The only way you can use this is if your pet's out, and basically it just gives you 25% of your maximum health back when you use Sacrificial Pact. This is learned at level 54. It does some damage to nearby enemies, but the main reason why you're probably going to use this is for the 25% maximum health if you need it. Okay guys, so here we go. Here's the talents. Just really quickly, I'm going to run you through it. First row, Heartbreaker is most likely going to be the only talent you're ever going to pick, especially in dungeons. Like I had mentioned earlier in the video, Heartstrike being your main runic power builder, and this is exactly why. As you see, you gain additional two additional runic power per target hit. So when you have Death and Decay down, you're using Heartstrike on a bunch of enemies. You're going to gain a lot of runic power from spamming Heartstrike. If you are just off tanking a raid boss that has no adds, Blood Drinker's probably going to win out over Heartbreaker because you don't really need the survivability. So know what content you're doing. Heartbreaker's AoE and main survivability. Blood Drinker is more of a single target raid boss with no adds. The second row is going to be Hemostasis. The other two didn't really get buffs enough to be competitive with this one still. Basically what happens is every time you hit Blood Boil with Hemostasis up, it increases the damage and the healing of your next Death Strike by 8%. It stacks up to 5 times, so up to increase of 40%. This is actually really, really strong, especially in Mythic Plus. The idea here is to try to hit a Blood Boil and save that Death Strike until you have 5 stacks of Hemostasis. If you can't help it, you really need the Death Strike, obviously use it, but Hemostasis is going to be your go-to. Make sure to try and time those Blood Boils so that you can get the most out of your Death Strikes. The next row is going to be Relish in Blood, is going to be the go-to. Crimson Scourge is just the ability that gives you a free Death and Decay. When this activates, you basically heal by 254 per Bone Shield. So if you have 10 Bone Shield, you get 2,540 health if you place the Death and Decay down. And you gain 10 runic power. This is going to be pretty nice because Crimson Scourge procs quite a bit, and you don't have to have 10 Bone Shield up to benefit from this. It's going to be a nice juicy heal. It's going to give you 10 runic power. Your go-to if you're a basic Blood DK and you're trying to learn, or you're new to the class, is going to be Will and Necropolis. There's going to be a place where Mark of Blood might be good, but this is going to be something you're going to have to manage. So for easy, damage taken below 30% is reduced by 30%. No brainer, pick Will and Necropolis. It's going to save your ass if you drop below, which you're most likely going to do if you're a new Blood DK. This next row, sorry, not the last row, the 40 row, is kind of utility. If you know you're going to need to move and need more mobility on a raid fight, use Wraithwalk. This Tightening Grasp, Gorfian's Grasp, is not going to be, crazy good, so I would skip over that. It's going to be between Wraithwalk if you need the mobility, or Grip of the Dead if you just need some kiting, or if you need to slow mobs. I always generally go with Grip of the Dead in all my Mythic Plus. You're not going to really need Wraithwalk in Mythic Plus, so Grip of the Dead to slow things down. It's good on necrotic weeks, it's good on kiting weeks. As a DK being so slow, having you slow things down will actually help you out quite a bit. This next row, Voracio's actually got a nice buff. It gives you a bunch of leech and it empowers your Death Strikes, and it combos well with Hemostasis. And it can actually combo pretty well if you pop it with Lichborn. You get a bunch of leech. But my go-to and recommendation is going to be bloodworms. Basically what they do, they attack your enemy. You don't have to manage anything. Attack, attack, attack. If you fall below 50% health, then they burst and they give you 15% of your missing. No brainer, go with this one. And then this last row, it kind of depends. I'm choosing Red Thirst simply because I have the vision of Perfection Minor, so my vampiric blood's up all the time. If you're doing hard content, progression content, use Purgatory. If you don't feel like you're going to die a lot and you just want that extra like survivability from having vampiric blood up, go with Red Thirst. And if you're doing a bunch of like fun stuff out in the world, or if you're just kind of doing a casual mythic dungeon or just any dungeon in general, go with Bone Storm. It's a big AoE. But this is kind of your choice depending on what content you're doing. And last but not least, guys, we have our new rune forges. Your go-to here to make this very easy guide is Rune of Hysteria. Rune of Hysteria gives you an extra maximum 20 runic power, which means that you can store up more runic power to save up death strikes for when you know you're going to take damage instead of wasting them and being capped earlier. And it also gives 20% increased runic power regeneration for 8 seconds. It has a chance to do that. This is going to be your go-to for survivability. Just honorable mentions, Rune of Fallen Crusader is still pretty good as well. You have Rune of Sanguination, which is going to have its niches, as well as Rune of Unending Thirst. But pick Rune of Hysteria. Okay guys, so the basic rotation for a tank is hard to always tell you guys. It's more of a priority list. But I'm going to give you kind of a general opener, one without anything like popped, like no Dancing Rune Weapon or anything or any cooldowns, and then one with Dancing Rune Weapon opener. So generally what you want to do is you want to normally drop a Death and Decay in front of the pack that you're pulling or on top of the pack. And as you approach the pack, pop a rune tap so you get that 20% damage reduction for 4 seconds because you don't have any bone shield. Why not use it? And then you'll want to blood boil, marrow rend to get some bone shield until you get 5 bone shield, and then you'll want to start heart striking. So I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. I'm going to go into the pack, the enemy mob, drop a Death and Decay, rune tap, blood boil, marrow rend, blood boil. I'll most likely need to death strike, but I'm going to hit a heart strike, and then from here you're just death striking. More likely than not, you're just spamming blood boil as a filler to keep your hemostasis stacks up. But at this point, I have 6 bone shield. Obviously, you're going to be taking damage, and that's going to be going down. You'll be taking damage and using death strikes. So make sure your main priority when you're attacking an enemy and you have threat on the mob is to just pull a bunch of runic power by using your heart strikes as much as possible. Always make sure when you get this proc to drop your Death and Decay, because when you use your heart strike in that, you attack more enemies and you gain more threat and more runic power. But just make sure you don't fall below 5 bone shield stacks. Make sure you use your blood boils. Don't have them just sitting there because, again, you're choosing hemostasis. You're going to have empowered death strikes if you use that. Use death strike when you take a good chunk of damage, and then just use heart strike to pull up that runic power. Alright, so the only difference if you open up with the Dancing Rune Weapon, obviously you're going to want to do this on a pack or boss where you know that you're going to gain threat right away, or if the pack in the dungeon is really hard and you want to make sure you get threat right away and get your defenses up. So basically what you're going to do, you're going to do the same thing, drop a Death and Decay, pop a rune tap, Dancing Rune Weapon on a target, blood boil, because you're going to get double the blood plague on all the enemies, and then hit your marrow rend and then start heart striking. So here we go. Death and Decay, rune tap, Dancing Rune Weapon, blood boil, marrow rend, and then from here you just blood boil and heart strike. That's it. Blood boil, heart strike, death strike. Make sure you drop that proc, heart strike, blood boil, and then of course you'll be losing bone shield stacks from things that meleeing you. I would try to use one more marrow rend before Dancing Rune Weapon fades, just to get that extra, you know, cap of bone shield and benefit from it, and try to blood boil once more before the Dancing Rune Weapon fades as well, to make sure you reapply your dot. Alright guys, hopefully that guide was helpful to you. Like I said, this is a very basic guide. Hopefully you got an understanding of what to use, what talent choices to pick, rune forges. and you had a little bit more of a idea of your stat priority, what to go after gear wise, as well as what to do going into a pack. If you have any questions, comment down below. I'll be doing more of an in-depth guide when Shadowlands comes out, like I said, part 2, going over conduits and the systems and maybe a little bit more advanced intermediate tips. But for now, if you do have any questions, comment below. Don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button if you haven't hit subscribe. I'm going to be having more Blood DK content coming out, especially with the new expansion. And if you want to come say hi to me on my stream, I do stream, like I said earlier, Tuesday and Thursday nights as well as Saturday mornings. So if you have any questions you want to ask me, live in person, just hop in my Twitch stream. Like I said, the link is down in the description below. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope it was helpful. If I missed anything, comment down below, like I said, and I hope you guys have a nice one. I'll see you in that next video.